All right. Hello, everyone, and thanks for giving us your time today for VR Sideload. Let us know in the comments if you can hear us. This is our first time trying to broadcast this way, so I'm not sure if everything is working right. I see Not Suspicious out there. I'm Ian Hamilton in New York, joined today by our guest, Chris Stockman of BitPlanet Games in the UploadVR studios as we look at where people go in VR headsets and what they do there. We're wearing Quest 3 headsets today with last generation meta avatars. We're using hand tracking with built-in microphones. We've got tablets in front of us that show us notes and comments so we can interact with our audience when we're live. Thank you to our patrons for supporting the work that we do over on UploadVR.com. In case this is your first time, you can become a paying member at UploadVR.com to support our work directly. We thank our patrons by name here on this podcast. That's XR Developer News, Podum, Holonet, Mike Manzano, Justin Corcoran, Richard Miller, Parma, John Cubit, Steve Lucas, David White, and Dee Ponch. Thank you all for that. Our patrons include people who understand just how wide and deep VR is, and we thank you for helping us explore it with you. Today, Chris and I are going to talk about three subjects today. First, we're going to talk about the game he just announced, and we'll learn about his development journey. And then when our audience convinces us, we'll talk about the Star Trek game that was just announced, a survival game in the Star Trek universe. And we've already got some hands-on impressions on our site already for that. And lastly, we'll be covering Project Graveyard and what it means to spend time with someone else doing what you want to do in VR. I see Not Suspicious saying howdy out there to us. That means I assume you hear us, so that's a good sign. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Why don't you let me? First thing I got to do is I got to go switch the cameras here. So let's solve that problem before we properly get to our broadcast. Why can I not click? There we go. All right, so you are, you can see yourself now. And unfortunately, the way you see yourself in that camera over there is not how the audience sees you. That you are a gray guest in our studio. Your avatar is animated. You've got controllers in your hand, but you are a gray avatar, just like our friend Gray Dawn. So tell us what you're building, who you are, and your development journey.
Yeah, well, I'm Christopher Stockman, basically here with BitPlanet Games. We are developers of the Ultra Wings franchise. We have been toiling away on a new game called Super RC for the better part of 3 years. It's a celebration of all things radio control cars. There's a variety of cars that you can use, play with. You can race, you can build your own tracks, you can go online, and you can bash with them in a variety of environments and spawn a bunch of different props and objects and ramps and all that just to have a good time. It's kind of some of it is structured, some of it is make your own fun.
That's we'll get into it piece by piece here because there's a lot of components of your game, and I like that you kind of laughed when you said 3 years. How do you feel about 3 years into this project? How are you feeling?
Terrified.
Yeah, why?
The market has definitely shifted, but the type of game we're creating has basically never been done before, and it's an RC car game. It sort of recreates the hobby in a pretty accurate form, but also trying to be accessible and trying to be fun and trying to be kind of a lot of different things. And I think it's just terrifying to basically have a market shift under your feet as well as you're designing and building a game that's never been done before. There's a lot of news. Right, a lot of not news and new news, a lot of uncharted territory, and that's just terrifying on many different levels. Yeah, that's it.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of angles to it, right? Like, I'm watching our comments here. We've got Arlen and Not Suspicious out there. So Not Suspicious has a couple games, a couple really interesting pieces of work out there. Please, if you're a developer, feel free in this sort of place to call out the games that you work on. I think this is a safe space for you to self promote in that way. I wouldn't link your stuff, but put the names of what you're doing, so that people know who, what you work on and can associate themselves with your work a little bit. Not Suspicious has Airspace Defender, which is like a little almost tabletop missile command.
Mm,
And it's all built for hand tracking, so you can pinch your missiles as they come in. And we had a
nice.
podcast, I don't know, 6 months ago with them where we did the most extreme version of the show that I'd like to ultimately do with you in the weeks ahead. So I've gone inside Super RC. I've taken a look around, and there is a lot going on. And I'm reminded of the dream in the hearts of a lot of devs out there of creating just starting with, I want to create a fun activity for two or more people to have together in VR. Is that how you conceived this idea, and how hard was it to hone around a multiplayer experience this way?
Yeah. So the story behind Super RC is actually a pretty interesting one. When we were done with Ultra Wings 1, we were talking about new game ideas. We were not set on doing a sequel. We were toying with a game idea that we called boy, the name escapes me, but it was basically WarioWare, and that was the tagline. It was WarioWare in VR, where you did a bunch of different. I remember now. It was called Verbs. So
There
capital
it
V,
is. Beautiful
lowercase
name.
e, capital R, B, S, Verbs, and it was all about doing really kind of WarioWare short little activities or verbs, right, that were given to you on a screen or kind of or I don't know how we were going to do it. It ended up turning into some sort of game show-esque type game where you're given a bunch of verbs and you have to act them out and you have to do them with props and objects on the table anyway. So we were trying to think of what's the meta component of verbs. And we came across, well, what about if we gave you gifts? Like that's part of, like, you unlocked all of these toys that you could interact with and play with other people with these toys. The first thing we built was an RC car, a fully working RC car. And that worked out really well. Like, you could unbox it and assemble it and drive it around. And so we shelved verbs because Meta convinced us to do a sequel. And we built Ultra Wings 2. And then after that, we kind of circled back and we were toying around with other ideas. And we came, well, what if we did Ultra Wings but with RC cars? So variety of RC cars, do a bunch of different activities. And that's how we stumbled upon this.
Patrick out there in the comments saying, I loved playing Ultra Wings, and they're reminding me something I even forgot, and I feel terrible about this. I even bought the Oculus Go version.
I'm sorry you bought the... Well, it's arguably the worst version of the game. I mean, outside of the Gear VR version. I mean, I forget how many platforms we put Ultra Wings 1 on, but...
I love it. And I love the honesty here amongst everyone, right? This is the vibe I'm going for with VR Sideload. Why I felt games wasn't the right name for talking about the way we spend time together in VR.
Well, we also have a rapport already. We've talked quite a bit, so...
Yeah, and I love that. I mean, that's so. I'll encourage you. You've got my phone number. This is. You've got my phone number. If other devs who are on a journey where they need to get their trailer in front of our eyeballs need my phone number, you feel free to pass that along.
I will.
To that journey. And that's what I'm illuminating here by saying that, right? Like, it's hard to reach media. It's hard to reach through. You kind of described it right at the outset. I mean, like, what's your expectation of help from any platform company regarding this title?
Well, none anymore. I mean, we did have some assistance early on. Everything just changed. The ecosystem changed, and so now we're kind of on our own with this and venturing out into the unknown without sort of any more assistance. And we'll see where the chips may fall.
So you're pretty invested. So the plan here is to release a Quest version. What are the prospects of a Steam version or another system coming after that?
I think it's going to be highly dependent on how people take to the Quest version.
Yeah, so that's a fascinating. It's difficult situation. So it means that you are on your own, grabbing an audience that whose eyeballs are controlled by a different entity, right? Like you have to reach those people, and you're not gonna have marketing, you're not gonna have assistance, and it's like even talking about this sort of makes it sound like you paid for marketing in order for us to like give you to give you a space to hear your sob story. Like it's not a sob story. This is the industry, right? At
Not
least
yet.
what I'm trying to get off, right? Right. Like people don't have, yeah, not yet. Gosh, that's brutal. Um, it's what what can you say was your reach for Ultra Wings 2? Why was it a financial success, and why did it reach where it did?
Yeah, it was a gigantic financial success. If it wasn't, we probably wouldn't be here today talking to you, showing you Super RC. I mean, it was a big success for us, both critically and commercially. It came out at a time when releases on the Quest platform were highly curated, and the store was highly curated. And yeah, you had side quest, but visibility on new titles um, that were released was highly controlled by Meta, and it guaranteed that you had a large set of eyeballs in front of it. And it also helped that Ultra Wings 1 really kind of exploded in popularity during the early days of the pandemic when the Quest came out. We were a launch title for it. Quest 1, did okay. And then during the pandemic, they kind of released Quest 2, and everything kind of exploded. Everybody was stuck in their homes, and they needed a way to get out, and so it was just serendipitous that that Ultra Wings 1 just kind of exploded. I mean, our sales almost 10x during the pandemic.
Wow, 10x. And that's and to put it in terms people who aren't developers might understand, that those sales are what funded your current development. Like
The sequels, yeah, the sequel sales has been entirely, not entirely. There's been some additional outside help from Meta, a little bit, but by and large, we kind of put all the chips in, and we're small, right?
Yeah.
We're XR, so we don't have an animal company sized hit that we can, yeah.
So Arlen out there in the comments with one of our first solid questions. Arlen is he's always in our audience. He's been a viewer for a couple of years now, and one of the pet projects we always talk about with Arlen is they they're obsessed with the Meta armbands that are coming, the wristbands,
Yeah.
and the dream project that we talk about is Deadpool and Wolverine, where it's not we got a Deadpool game coming, but we want Wolverine where you just think, I want my blades, and your blades pop out from your wrist, and you feel a little haptic effect from your wrist, and they come out from here. I mention it almost every podcast because Arlen is such like a visionary out there with this idea, because we need this. And we even had a previous podcast where we talked with Camouflage, the Batman Arkham Shadow devs, and they were like picturing it with us, doing the claws to climb up walls. It would be so amazing. We want it, but like, Meta is going to have to ship new controllers or new controller paradigm, in even for that to even possibility. But anyways, that's my backstory on Arlen, the person who's asked this comment, and so asked this question: what was the hardest part about learning to code, Unity or whatever engine you use, and what's the hardest thing about developing a game?
Well, I'll just answer the second question, because the first question is I'm less of an engineer these days, and more of kind of a game director of sort. So the second part, with regards to this game specifically, is trying to find the fun in RC cars. and that's been the most challenging aspect of the game. I think I think there's parts of the game that are incredibly fun, and then others that are is incredibly fun, but requires a bit of a learning curve to find that fun.
Mm.
And
Learning, that's
there's
a
a learning
tricky
curve to the
balance,
game.
right? You must go crazy with some of the balancing options, right? Like is it one day you've got one thing and then you set it back the next day, like you go back the other way, like even it's like how do you describe the difficulty of controlling an RC car?
Yeah, I mean, so if your car's right in front of you, I think it's pretty easy to do, and you don't have any constraints, and you can walk around freely, and which is what we have, right? You can go outside of your virtual home, and you're in a neighborhood, and you got to experience that, and you can walk around, and you can drive the car, and it's actually pretty intuitive once you've learned the basics of how to control it. But I think from a racing an RC car is much more difficult because you are standing on a fixed platform overlooking a track, and it's all about navigating around the track using a perspective that you're not used to. And also, things controls change when your car is going different directions, right? If it's coming towards you, your controls are kind of switched than if it's going away from you, meaning right is right and left is left. But that's just the opposite when the car is going in front of you. So it's just different. It requires a different train of thought than if you were steering the car from behind a wheel.
So to not confuse people, to be very clear, this game is 100% two controllers required.
Yes. So typically in an RC controller, you have your one of your hands. We do support right or left, but let's just say for the sake of argument, left hand, you're right-handed, left hand grabs the controller. You control the throttle and the brake, usually with just the trigger on the controller, and then your right hand steers the car by holding the wheel. It's called a pistol grip remote. With us, because and brake is usually by pulling up or pushing up on the trigger. It's got you push down or you kind of pull up, or pull down, pull up. With us, reverse is on the opposite hand trigger, as that's really the only way you can do it. And so
Interesting. Okay,
you got to use both hands.
So not so glad we clarified that. Not suspicious out there echoing. It's really tough being in XR indie these days. And then Arlen wants to go back. We also have the other half of that question from Arlen of what was the hardest part of learning to code? So when did you learn to code? How old were you, and what was the hardest part?
I mean, I never learned. Let's put it this way. I was thrown in the deep end on a company where I was told to basically kind of script the whole game using a C language, just C. And I hadn't been exposed to coding at that time, so I just brute forced it and slept under my desk and just learned how to do it during the course of the project. And we had a very short time frame to ship it, and so I just killed myself essentially. And it's funny because at the end of the project, the studio technical director looked at my code and said, "You'll never code again at the company." And so I stuck to design at that point. So
yeah,
yeah,
interesting. All right, I love that. So I'm seeing a couple people here talk about their time with Ultra Wings. I think they're Ultra Wings fans who are probably likely to discover this podcast over time afterwards. We didn't do a whole lot of promotion on this because we wanted to test this out for the first time, and also like a lot of things can go wrong. So that's my way of asking. Please hit the like button. Please share this out with others right now while we're live, if you're watching us live, so that you can get in those questions in front of a developer and understand what it's like to build these games. But speaking to some of the fans here, Subcog saying, I spent an ungodly amount of time in Ultra Wings 2. I think I put 200 hours into it. How does that? It makes you laugh. How does that make you feel?
It's the reason why I do what I do is to get stuff like that, to get responses or feedback like that. There was a guy there was a guy that's emailed us that said he 100% of the game 4 times. There's 4 save slots in the game, and he 100% of the game, all 4 save slots.
So you're hitting something. I want to bring something home to everyone here. You're telling me that conceptually, as like a person prototyping ideas, you're like, I want to recreate what it's like to get a Christmas present under the Christmas tree, and
Yeah.
that's basically what you did, right? Like, and
Yeah. When you buy your car, it comes in a box, and you get to unbox it and assemble it in the whole 9 yards.
so do you know you ever play H3VR, hot dogs, horseshoes, and hand
Yeah.
grenades? The dev there does the 25 days of Christmas or whatever it is. I can't remember how often he does it, but he does a countdown advent calendar often for his audience. And for some of those people who play that game, it will be the only Christmas present they get that year is the update to hot dogs, horseshoes, and hand grenades each day. They're getting an advent calendar present. So they're coming back to their Steam machine every day through the month of December. And there's a few people that you can imagine a community looking at that going, well, I think he has a clever way of doing those updates on an experimental channel or like the beta channel or something, so that the other people don't get inundated with 25 days of updates and then start complaining about that at the same time that he's trying to do this magical thing for everyone else. I'm correct me if I'm wrong about how he does those advent calendars, but the story, the core of this is still the same. I'm hearing like hearts out there regarding realizing that, you know, some people in your audience never had an RC car and never will,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, right, you're trying to create this fantasy recreation of what it was like to get an RC car, right? Trying to give a little bit of love and recreate that feeling. Anyways, I'm going to look through the comments here. I would love to see any questions out. Denver Miller out there from Northern Utah. We love seeing where people tune in to us from all over the world. We had someone watch us from Antarctica once. That was a really neat. And I was like, oh, wow. Yeah. And my dream now is to have an astronaut watch us on a
That'd be awesome.
on a
Yeah.
capsule. Well, you know, I don't know if they'll be wearing a VR headset watching us. That's too tall of an ask in
Mhm.
a space station, right? But like, I feel like someone could be watching us on a tablet or something. How long? When did you get the VR bug? When did you get hooked on this?
I was at Alex Schwartz's house. I was visiting in Austin, and I went to his house. I can't remember why. I think, yeah, I can't remember, but I went to his house. I'd never met him before. So, and he was the Alchemy founder, right? One of the founders, and he was prototyping Job Simulator at the time in his garage, and he had a sort of, you know, prototype still of the Vive, and the controllers were, you know, duct taped together and all that stuff, sort of thing. And he put the headset on me, and I got to try out a little bit of Job Simulator, and I was like, well, okay, I'm going to go back and pivot and try to get into this space.
Interesting. That's a very unemotional way of describing a business-minded decision, right? Like was there any emotion to it in that moment of going to VR and realizing that this was as good as it was or
Um,
as bad as it was? I'm trying to understand the that moment and whether it was conversion, like it was a conversion moment or not. It's just I'm going to make a bet.
yeah, I think it was part of. I mean, I was definitely wowed by the technology, and was like, wow, you could do some really interesting things. I've always been a Pilot Wings fan. I was a fan of the first one. I was a fan of the 64. I even played the 3DS version. Right, I was always a fan. And I guess I saw an opportunity to kind of be a big fish, small pond scenario, which is always the kind of, I like to go that route, especially when not a lot of money is involved. And so it was a bet. It was like, well, I think we could make a pretty killer uh, flight game, but be very different than your traditional simulator. And that was, you know, that was just, yeah, it was purely kind of a gut feeling.
So let me that's almost a decade, or it is more than a decade.
More than a decade.
More than a decade, right? Did you think it would take this long to get millions of people playing VR games? And why are we in the state that we're in when it comes to like having it be so hard for you to find an audience after you had such a good track record, right? Like you have, but by all accounts, right? You did the projects are Ultra Wings 2, and then this one. Is that it?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So in a functioning market, right, where people are building bigger and bigger games like you take the learnings from the last one and bring them forward, and I'm already seeing some of these people they're imagining about crossover. Is there a dream of crossover with aircraft, with your RC car? Yeah.
We'll see. I mean, we built a platform, right, where we can add on almost indefinitely any sort of idea that we have in terms of RC stuff. So, is there a dream of doing some sort of RC aircraft game or adding in? Sure. I mean,
but you got to see, right? And so the going back to, and I'm seeing Subcog saying Austin represent, and talking about, I've seen there is some magic in Austin. There's a bunch of devs out there doing really interesting things. Obviously, Walkabout Mini Golf is out there doing their work. The Job Simulator folks have an office out there still today, after all these years working for Google. And they're working on some of the basic interface ideas for the next few years of VR. And that's what I want to go back to, is like, how do you've got a game that's like a baby that like needs nourishment and love to grow, to do these dreams, to see these features really go to where you want them to go. And by all indications, there's more, like, not by all indications, in our gut, there are more people using VR today than ever before.
Yeah.
They're just dispersed, and the wall, like, it's become impossible for you to reach them without spending large amounts of advertising dollars to do so. So, like, that feels like madness. That feels a little bit like madness when to think, wait, there's more people ever using VR. And the path you were on was like, my project should be a little bit bigger. It should be a little bit more ambitious from where it was with Ultra Wings 2. Ultra Wings 2 was a well-loved game. I have people in our audience telling us they've put hundreds of hours into it. Our own reviewer labeled it essential, to put this mark of excellence on this idea that you recreated this dream of flight, right? This fantasy. But you went and made bets based on all indications of exactly what our gut is telling us. There are more people using VR today than ever before. Yet your ability to reach that market is 1/10 maybe, or some fraction, some horrible fraction of what it was when you did Ultra Wings 2. Please let me know if what I'm saying is experienced by any other devs out there in the audience. Now let's hear from you. Talk to me about what I've just said. What is the reality of VR today?
Well, I think part of it is the fact that we are terrible at social media. I mean, we have our X account, and we have our Discord server, and we have all of these, things, but we're also developers, and we're not marketers. We're not marketers by trade. And so a lot of it is really grassroots. And I just am a big fan of showing, not telling. I want to show stuff. I want to show stuff that looks good. And in this day and age, people want to see stuff that warts and all, and we just are not kind of into that sort of thing. And it's just a different train of thought, and a different train of different methodology of marketing stuff. We, some developers have YouTube shows and all that sort of thing, and we just don't do any of that. And so some of it is our fault. Some of it is the fact that the market has changed, and now it seems like a much younger audience who is not interacting who's not interacting on X, who's not on Instagram. They're on TikTok. We have zero TikTok presence. We have to up our TikTok game in order to reach those. I don't think that market is going to be real big into racing. So it's going, so our marketing strategy for TikTok is going to be all about the sandbox mode. Because it's it's much more free form and that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean,
So I'm gonna talk about the vibe real quick of the game, right? I talked about off road, super off road or whatever. I don't remember what the technical name was of the
Ivan
arcade
Stewart,
game.
super off road.
Yeah, oh, jeez. So that's the game where you walk up and you've got the three wheels at
Yes.
the station. You've got the three gas pedals that you can press down on the floor, and then you go up to the station. You get your two friends potentially on either side of you, so you get a 2 to 3 person game, and then within, I don't know, 30 seconds of putting that quarter into the machine, you're like taking the wheel and spinning it at like doing 3 circles and then grabbing it at the perfect time and then spinning it back to try to nail turns at just the right time as you're slamming that gas pedal to the floor. And I'm talking verbs, right? These are verbs of like physical action that you're feeling on the simplest arcade cabinets from our yesteryear, right?
Yeah.
I went into Super RC, and after I spent time with the controls and I started really dialing in what this was, I started feeling that same loop as that off-road cabinet 30 years ago, where I'm like, oh, this is starting to feel a little better. I'm actually able to make the turn here a little bit quicker on my second go around here, and now I'm pressing the gas a little bit faster, letting up on it a little bit quicker, and I'm getting a little twitchy with my controls just in, I don't know, 20 minutes of playing your game. And not only that, but what are we looking at here? We're looking at the track editor, right?
We are.
And I went in to the track editor for a few minutes, and you showed me some of the track editor stuff. But like the speed with which I was out there on a course that literally felt like one of those courses from that old 80s arcade cabinet, just based on the shape of of how much space you had left for these turns to be dropped down. I was out there and I'm like, wait, did you base this map off of the original game? Because I am almost having memories of going over this long stretch at the top of the map and then doing a turn and it just felt right, so to speak. Yeah, was that conscious? And why don't you talk about the features of the game while I look at the comments here?
Yeah. So it's one pillar of the game is racing, and this is the jumper track editor. So we have multiple cars, and each car has their own track editor. Each racing car, I should say, has their own track editor. It's class based, right? So jumpers race against jumpers, and off road races against off road, and so on. The track editor here is really intuitive. You grab the pieces on either side. This is like the last used piece section. This is the piece categories. You switch them with your buttons on your controllers. You grab them with your hands, you drop them, you assemble them however you want. You can raise their elevation using the triggers. And then when you're ready to test it, you just push a button right here, generate, clean map button, generate. You push it just like you would an old arcade machine, and then it spawns in your scene and you can test drive it around. And then you can save it if you want, and then take it directly into multiplayer and race against other people. It's all really slick, really intuitive, and it works like a charm.
And then let's go to the cars. Let's look at the cars real quick.
Yeah.
So talk to me about the cars. This is all one type of car that you're going to have in the game, but you're going to have a lot, right?
Yes. So this is the car that comes with the game. It's called the Jumper. It's like a buggy type car. You race against other jumpers, right? Each car has their own distinct handling characteristics. and so you can't do cross contamination, so to speak, with different cars because they just behave very, very differently. They have different speeds, different handling. Everything is, so it's really class based. And so yes, this is what car comes with the game. You're racing on carpet here, which is very different than off road.
So different surfaces and different cars, and then when you're back off the racetrack, you can pull these things open and really pick apart the interior.
The jumper is more toy than anything, so it doesn't come with a lot of different parts, but the other cars do. They do have different parts, and when it comes in a box, you see them all in there. In the trailer, we show that, and they come in different parts and you assemble them. And yeah, you can basically disassemble if you want.
And what's going on in this image?
So this is in the hobby shop. We built a virtual hobby shop to go in. This is part of the sort of hobby of RC car racing, is to go to your local hobby shop to buy your cars. And we basically wanted to create that. This is the crawler. This is another subtype of RCs that are extremely popular. And it's about off-road racing, or not really racing. It's just off-road driving. But we have a crawler editor that you can build your own crawler courses on. And we do have a form of competitive crawler versus crawler action. It's kind of, it's a post-launch update, but basically each person kind of spawns cars in sequential order, and you have to kind of, in a sense, race each other to get to the end. But it's not traditional racing. It's basically each car spawns like almost in 15-second increments, and if one car touches another one, it resets them. It's very different than traditional racing, but it's off-road driving.
Yeah, I'm thinking about our audience out there and how I want to talk about things. We had an experience. This is the craziness of the market here, okay? I just want to say an aside. Do you have an Apple Vision Pro?
I do.
How often do you use it?
Well, I used it for probably the third time about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, and a third time 2 to 3 weeks ago.
And I bought it at launch.
Yeah, that's maddening. Why haven't you been interested in making something for that device?
Yeah. Well, I would love to put Ultra Wings would be beautiful on it. The screen is amazing. But there's no way to control anything. You can't control the game, and we're not going to put hand tracking in it. It'd be a terrible experience. Trying to no haptics and any of that, and you just need to be very precise, and always be precise. Right? You lose tracking, you crash, and so and also we want to make a game for an audience larger than 1,000 people. I'm being facetious here. I'm sure Apple sold 1,002 units, but probably not much more than that. Yeah. Anyway, I joke.
No, I get it. And I want to talk about Arlen. I want to talk about we'll get to Project Graveyard at the end of this, which I think is going to talk about what you're talking about with Dream board games. So Arlen out there in our comments has been like, what's your dream? I have a dream of board games in VR, of just playing together really effectively board games. But there's so many different ways to do it, right? Demio is just one of a whole way. There's lots of ways to do it. I want to talk about Hollis White's comment here. I have about 15 RC cars. I can't wait for this game. So thank you for popping in here. You are the type of person that this developer is trying to reach. It's just extraordinarily difficult to find more like you. So please spread the word about the game, right? Like you've got to do your part in helping the word get out at this point, right?
Can I make one comment regarding that? That's a phenomenal comment. Thank you for that. It kind of makes my day a little bit. I posted the UploadVR link, right? Both to the trailer and to Reddit subforum RC Cars. I got downvoted.
I mean, that's you tried to. You tried, like, if you would have clicked self-promotion developer if it was there, I assume, right?
That's
Like
right. It wasn't
this
there,
isn't a
right?
shady thing you're doing, I assume. Yeah. So
No.
it's that's the reality of this market, right? Like how can you not go to an RC club and go like, look, this is my I went to a clubhouse and made my dream RC setup, and I'd like to get your feedback, guys. Let me
Yeah.
know, right?
Yeah.
Like, I assume that's what you came there with.
That's right. Just to spread the word, right? Like I'm not trying to replace your hobby. I'm trying to say, sometimes you're not able to go outside and drive your cars. You're not able to race your cars. You're not able to do this. Here's a way to do it anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
People are talking about Radio Shack out there in the audience, and that's one of the reasons this spoke to me. Spoke to Don out there with Radio Shack. The whole idea of going to the Radio Shack. I brought this story up in the past. I remember my dad in the '90s had I think it was '90s, had his cell phone cloned while going down the road and on a business trip, and he got charged by his boss for a whole bunch of calls he never made because someone took his phone number and made a whole bunch of calls with that number. And he learned from that. And what he learned from that was to take his son, me, down to Radio Shack and give me a radio scanner to let me, have the power that someone took away from him, essentially, right? Like, I essentially got a scanner that let me listen to the airwaves, and suddenly, what? There's unencrypted phone calls happening around us all the time? What is this society, right? Like, you suddenly, this is a realization of a child in the 1990s, right? This is the foundation of who I am. And so Don, I don't know if you have anything similar with that experience, but we have network engineers in our audience, we have devs in our audience, we have people that like believe in this medium as like giving us back I don't know, some of that feeling of going back to the RC, and getting a toy, right? It's getting
Yeah.
some new thing. And
Just
I love that. I love that
just
vision.
having fun. I mean, we're not solely a racing game. I just want to stress that it's many more things than that. It's just one aspect of it, because if we didn't have that, we would have a bunch of people complaining that we didn't have that.
Mm. All right, I think it's time for us to switch subjects here, and maybe we'll come back to more RC car questions. So if you have any more RC car questions, this is the person to ask. Well, he's here for the duration of this conversation. And let's see, Hollis has another question. I like how you can buy them and put them, let's see, put them together. I like the bashers and how you can actually flip them.
Yep.
That's great, and that's part of your plan here. Is you're going to try to appeal to more of those RC clubs and get some of those RC fans out there, even though you got voted right at your first attempt. Arlen is out there with a tear at the stories and stuff. VR Gamer Dude, I got my first shortwave radio at Radio Shack, and it was magical to hear radio from all over the world. You know what I did in the last week? I got there's a thing called Orange FM. It's a custom board that gets put into a Game Boy cartridge, and then you put the Game Boy cartridge into any Game Boy, and you have radio inside the Game Boy. And I'm ready to. It has its own 3.5 millimeter jack on it, in addition to the 3.5 millimeter on whatever the device is, so you can have your own. Yeah, you have your own radio coming out of your Game Boy cart. So I've got my camera, I've got my radio. I'm totally ready to have an RC car as well. I'm ready for my fleet of RC vehicles. So I hope this finds its audience. All right, let's see. Yeah, VR Gamer Dude repeating, yes, the unboxing experience, and this will be a nice touch. And Not Suspicious is looking for Lord Greydon. That's what we've referred to him as, because ultimately, like, when you show up as a gray presence, you're from another realm, I guess.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You're a holy figure, I guess. But here's where I'm going to switch the subject here. It's time for us to talk about Star Trek.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We have there's a pure luck here that we have the luck of having a good reason to talk to you about Star Trek. What is that good reason to talk to you about Star Trek? Because this week I'm looking through my photos here, and this is how messed up it is. Um, I've got our recent photos from our website that, from all our recent articles, and there will be an article about a game called Star Trek Infection.
Yes.
And I'm looking at the images here, and I'm trying to identify which is the Star Trek images in my little thumbnails here. And I'm like, no, that's a horror game. That's Alien. I can't be Star Trek. Is this is this Star Trek? Can someone help me? I don't is if this may not be the Star Trek game. I
It
can't.
is the L cars. Give it away.
Oh, they're there on the
See,
back, right
I
there.
knew L cars.
Oh, you're right. Okay, they're in the very back there. This
They're right
looks,
there.
yeah. All right. All right. So I found the Star Trek images. Thank goodness. Uh, there's a game called Star Trek Infection that just got announced quite suddenly with a trailer. Um, we got a hands-on. Go read it on UploadVR.com. Unfortunately, this is the matchup of VR, right? The
Mhm.
reviewer, the person we had present to go into this game, doesn't do horror games, right? And so now we've got a Star Trek horror game, which already doesn't fit with many people's image of like Star Trek, being played by someone who like doesn't necessarily love the genre in the medium that we're playing it in. So it's just a mismatch all the way down. So Henry Stockdale wrote a very careful piece about this on just
I read it.
yeah. So do you think he got the right angle on this? Because it's difficult from my perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's funny because I made I not me personally, but I was the lead designer on a Star Trek game that was a sequel of a Voyager themed game. It's called Elite Force 2. It was a first person shooter, and it was in some ways kind of antithetical to Star Trek. It was shoot first, ask questions later type of thing, which is not Star Trek in the strictest sense, right? Of diplomacy and all that, kind of talking your way out of stuff, other than some of the movies. But yeah, but
So
there's still
so
a lot of
so so
Star
there's
Trek
a
elements to
similarity
it.
here because there's a mismatch in theme is what some of the people are reacting here,
Yeah,
right? And you
yeah.
apparently had that experience with a first person shooter in the Star Trek universe. How do you try? How does when you had that game? How do you try to match up? Like as a Star Trek fan,
Yes.
faced with the task of making our first person shooter
Yeah.
in flat, right?
Yes.
How do you approach it?
Yeah. So, we had a mix of both sort of shooty segments and um, talk talk segments, story segments. We had a lot of cutscenes. We had a lot of dialogue. And then you got to interact with Star Trek races. So the first mission, the first level that it was set in the Borg cube, and it was all about getting out of the it was set in the Voyager timeline. It was all about that very last episode of Voyager where they got back to Federation space with the hell by basically doing something Trekky with Borg conduits and warp conduits. Anyway, so but then you got to meet Patrick Stewart, and got to interact with him. And then we're assigned the Enterprise, and then you got to walk through and explore the Enterprise. And then things happened, and you got to shoot stuff, and then you interacted with Ferengi. So it was a mix and match. It was both. It was a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Tried to appeal to both Star Trek fans and action fans.
That's all right. You brought it full circle because that's ultimately the task facing this game
It is.
now for VR fans, right? How do we get both audiences here? And it seems like there's some mechanics here that are looking interesting, but the Trekkies are all like we've been burned quite a bit recently by a lot of media in our sphere. So there's people are having difficulty getting excited for this, and then I gotta bring up just this team, this artwork is going to be facing the same situation you are, right? And I Do you have good vibes from the fact that this game was just the trailer was just announced and it's just releasing? Because your trailer was just announced and then you're releasing in a couple months. I'm trying to figure out whether I should be as excited for this game as I'm excited for your game.
Um, I think our game will be much cheaper.
Yeah, so $8 is the price you've arrived at, and you arrived at that very carefully, right? To trying to figure out like tell me the thinking, right? Because I think you originally thought more than that, didn't you?
Well, initially the plan was to go with kind of the Ultra Wing style price point, which was $15 to $20. You get all the cars, and then you unlock them. Very similar to Ultra Wings 2, but we switched gears and was like, you know what? Let's price it so that. Then we thought about free, but there's connotations with free. And then you have to earn, you really have to earn premium currency. And I just, I don't want to kind of go down that rabbit hole. So we kind of erred on a very friendly consumer price point of $8. You get a car, and then if you want, you get a bunch of content for that car. You get all the single player races and all the trials and the sandbox mode and multiplayer with all the racing cars. You can play with any of the racing cars in multiplayer. And if you want to buy those racing cars separately, you can. They're one-time purchases, and it includes all of the customization and the single player content associated with them. So I think it's a best of both worlds scenario. It's a very consumer friendly price point. You get a lot of stuff with that price point. And if you want to customize those other cars, and you want to play the single player races and the trials for those other cars, they're one-time purchases.
Mm. So we're really excited about getting into this game over a longer term, getting a horror fan into the game to see how it holds up to the horror genre. But
I'm interested. I'm interested in seeing what they do. I mean,
yeah, well, that's the thing that I'm balancing it with is I don't know how long they were working on it. You have told me you've been working on this 3 years.
Yeah.
And then there's also just I got really burned by what happened to Alien last year. I think a lot of people got a little bit burned, and I have to bring up Alien with regards to you because ultimately they seem to be a victim of the same exact changing of the market situation. They threw everything behind a standalone port when the market wasn't there to support the standalone port. It was like the precise time that everyone was not there. And that's, I mean, I don't know if that's just me guessing here. I'm maybe oversimplifying what happened, but we've gone a year on from that, and it's even worse. It's even more difficult to find an audience in the MetaQuest ecosystem compared to when that game launched. And now suddenly there's a Star Trek game that is an unexpected genre, and yeah, we hope it feels good, right? We hope it feels good. We hope it's complete.
So you know what it is? I think it's really challenging to make a single player standalone VR game now. Very challenging.
Yeah.
Right. Like I would love to make Elite Force 3. Star Trek first person shooter, Elite Force 3 VR game, right? The key difference is that it would be team based, and you would be with other people and working as a team, almost Rainbow Six, right? Rainbow Six-ish in the Star Trek universe. I think that'd be a tremendous amount of fun.
I love it. I love it. And I hope that I want to let it sit in the audience for a minute before we move on from that, because a fun idea, and it talks about the dreams, right? There's so many ideas that VR devs have pitched, have felt in their bones was a good idea, and at the end of the day, it's like I've got to execute the idea. So what's the smallest version of this idea that I can release to a couple people out there and see where it goes. It's so difficult, but our audience, our Star Trek fans, are all like, I want this now. And all right, I need to share another anecdote that I've heard in my reporting. I remember talking to Brian, I can't think of his name. In Exile was his company. But
Brian
he did,
Fargo?
yes, Fargo, Brian Fargo. Do you know him? Have you ever worked with him?
No, but I worked at Volition, which tangentially, right, worked on Free Space, which was Interplay, and goes full circle, right? And
And he,
Interplay was his thing, or he worked at Interplay, right? Am I remembering that correctly? I believe so.
yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes, Interplay. And there was some story about getting William Shatner into the audio room for one of his games. And there's actually audio tape recorded by the audio engineer released to the internet as internet lore
I think I've
of
heard that.
sabotage versus sabotage, I think was
Yes,
the
yes,
argument.
yes, yes.
So you got to witness the Patrick Stewart version of this. Was there any particular lines that you remember Patrick Stewart saying that just ring in your head rent free? That you got
No,
to witness him
no,
say.
he was so pro about it. He required next to no direction. He got the script and it was just he just banged it out like it was second nature. He just knows the character and you know I mean I don't even I don't even think he was in the studio for more than an hour. I think he just
Yeah.
cranked it out.
I'm gonna throw out something, another weird idea. I always throw out weird ideas on our VR download podcast, but like I wish that they had fan viewings for like voice
Yeah,
recording sessions
yeah.
from your favorite people. Like, let's have 10 fans come in here and just stare at that actor while they're saying their lines for an hour. They can all sign the NDA, but that's a fan experience. A bunch of people would pay for it to like.
It is, but you know what? I think it would make the actor feel uncomfortable having an
Oh
audience
yeah.
there watching him. Yeah,
And I wonder. I guess there would be a few that would probably thrive on that, but most would probably hate it with a passion, right? Yeah.
I think Patrick Stewart probably would have not cared because he's also a stage actor, and stage actors are used to having audiences right then and there, right? But
Yeah. Oh man. So now there's a four-person away team. All right. So you specifically said that game, right? And now, all right. Let's go back. Did you play? Oh wait. It's not the. What was the
Bridge
start?
Crew?
Bridge Crew. Yeah, I couldn't think of the name. Bridge Crew.
No, I never. I mean, I yes and no. I didn't get to experience it as much as I wanted to because I didn't have anybody to play with because I have no friends.
The plight of all VR people, right? Like, I mean, ultimately, I'm actually becoming kind of like this is a lonely business, and one of the reasons it's lonely is because the platforms all want to own all 7 billion souls
Well, that's
on
the
their
yeah.
platform, right? Like,
Well, if you remember when VR first came out, and Bridge Crew was kind of part of that first wave of really high quality kind of AAA-ish games, multiplayer kind of wasn't a thing, right? It not really, not to the extent it is now. From our experience, no one was playing multiplayer, and so I think that's ultimately what happened with that is that multiplayer just wasn't very popular, primarily because of the audience size, right?
yeah. Let's see. Let us know if you've got any questions or comments out there. I think people are really vibing with this, and VR mind melds being the feature in here that people are curious about,
Yeah,
how that mechanic sort of plays out. I'm seeing Arlen talking about Artemis. They've mentioned Artemis a bunch of times, which is like it's a Star Trek themed game, co-op VR. And it was in flats. Let's see what he says. He says, "Can we get a Star Trek game that's as good in co-op VR as Artemis Bridge Crew was in flat screen? A 6-player co-op. Star Trek Bridge Crew was only 4-player." And it's funny. Like there was one more Star Trek experience that I've tried in VR, and I can't remember the name of the place right now, but it was a location based VR experience, and I went down there with a colleague, and it began with was this I think it was the Discovery crew from the TV. So they had some of the Discovery people and actors in there. Tilly, I think, showed up, or maybe Tilly, yeah. There was a couple of the characters there, and you're starting on the ship, but you immediately go onto the transporter and transport down to an away mission. And when you transport down to the away mission, you go through the transporter, you go to an icy planet, and the moment you rematerialize on the icy planet, a bank of like 6 industrial strength fans all turn on and blow at you. I don't know how many fans it was, but they were all giant metal husk fans. And so the 5 minutes into the Star Trek experience, you've got a phaser and a tricorder to scan the surroundings. So they've got the mechanics right. I'm a scientist, researcher, explorer trying to explore a strange new world, and the moment of like whoever designed that experience knows how to use VR because we want to go on the away missions, don't we? Right?
Yeah.
And it's such a hard problem to pull off, right? Let's see if there's any comments. I really loved Henry's article on this Star Trek infection
I did too.
experience. Very hard to write is, I guess, what I'm saying. Like it's hard to come from that perspective of I don't like horror games and still write something that speaks to people who like horror games, right? So great job there from Henry Stockdale. And yeah, we want to get back into Bridge Crew, but it's just Bridge Crew is not like what's fascinating about Bridge Crew is it illuminated how hard it is for everyday folks to step into the role plays that VR wants them to like step into. Like you can go to the science desk and be the science officer, but it's not as simple as just giving you 40 buttons and letting them actually do what you touch. It's like, you need to help the person step into this role so that when the captain turns to them, they go, "Aye, aye, captain," and then they know where to turn. Like it's very difficult.
It
yeah.
is.
And it comes back to your game, even in a sense, right? You're starting with RC cars and just holding that thing in your hand, the control mechanism.
Yeah.
The very first moment, it's the very first thing you do in the game, right? Is basically reach out and grab this.
Not the very first thing, but it's one of the first things. The very first thing is actually learning how to interact with our virtual tablet that we created.
That's right, the virtual tablet, and we have a virtual tablet here, right? That's the virtual tablet is fundamental to all the magic we do here. We sometimes it's funny. Like Don and I have had this conversation out there in this audience. Why do we come in here, right? Why do we go through the extra steps of coming in here? But ultimately, the silly thing about the question is like we've had broadcasts blow up on this audience in phenomenal ways. Our audio has been awful. We've been in different universes. The system has gone down, right? It's the long list of things. But earlier in the show, 40 minutes ago, you took the two controllers you're holding right there and walked us through the controls of your game by pantomiming them directly in front of us.
Yeah.
And everyone who's a VR fan 100% understood everything you said when you walked us through the controllers. And like this little action of doing this with the offhand and having a controller for it and having to know that it has to be precision input tells tells those people who understand VR whether this is a game for me. We had a whole conversation. Let's go to Project Graveyard now. This is a good time to switch. We always love our Star Trek fans. We're going to keep talking about Star Trek through the rest of the show, but I want to throw this image up here. You and I met in Vision Pro, and I shared with you my Game Boy camera screen. I think it was my Game Boy camera playing live with me, and it breaks my brain again and again and again that this is a model available to us in VR, and almost no one is experiencing it. Developers can't profit from it yet, and yet there's so many really, really cool things. I want Super RC at a much smaller scale than I would love to hold the RC. Like I've got the PlayStation 2 VR controllers. Why can't I play a version of Super RC that's in a volume like this?
Mm-hmm. Well, we do have mixed reality mode in the game. Good little way to plug that. You can draw out your play space and essentially play any of the sort of single player content within that play space, and it scales to whatever size that you so desire. So you could literally go into your garage and scale it to the size of your garage, and the cars in the environment scale accordingly. So you can go from your queen size bed to garage, and it all scales perfectly and plays out how you would expect.
Multiplayer works in mixed reality mode?
Not yet.
Okay.
That'll be a post-launch thing.
So there it is. I mean, that's ultimately like that's I want 4, 5, 6 people like all gathered around that thing, and they can position themselves wherever they want. They can position the map wherever they want. They can resize it large and small, maybe. I don't know that Vision OS necessarily. I don't know what the model is even on Vision OS for getting to all of those things being doable with the game. But like it's so close and so far from the model you've had to build for your VR game. Like so many let me go back to Project Graveyard. What is Project Graveyard? All right, so this is an art project that Joseph Simpson released for Apple Vision Pro. It's a free game. Go read my article on it. He put me in version 3.0 of this software, and in version 3.0, you can look at any of these headstones, pinch on it, and bring it over to you. And then when the headstone is pulled over to you, you can go like this with the other finger, give it some space, and then stretch it out and look at it up close. So if each of these headstones has a couple paragraphs on it that are like you can only read the big text on it when it's far away, you can just press the button, look at it up close, get the details on it, and throw it back. There's no limit to how many of these volumes you can have on Vision OS. You can have a second volume right here, a third volume behind it over there, a fourth volume over there, a couple more volumes behind you there. And in theory, you can look at all of them and interact with the objects within in this way. So it's almost like having, in theory, a playground, right? We're back at the thing where like maybe this is my toy, right? This is the toy model. This is where my RC car should be. I should be able to reach in here and maybe pull my RC car apart. And then I press a mode and it switches to map mode. And then I press another mode and maybe I go fully immersive then. But before I go fully immersive, when I'm trying to hang out with other people in my home or whatnot, if I'm trying to hang out with people in my home, I'd like to have my car in this space and maybe have you reach inside of it and go, I think we should take out this part and put a different, I think you're holding a shock, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going, oh, wait, can you put that shock in here? And you take the shock and put it in there. And like collaborative building on an object is a completely different model than where you've had to arrive, where the single player has to go back into their room in order to mess with the object, right?
Yeah. You have to go back into to your home.
Subcog saying there are Hot Wheel sized RC cars. Tiny RC cars would be great for tabletop. To recap, you're doing 1/5 scale
in
cars,
VR,
right?
In VR. But obviously in MR, it's arbitrary, right? It could be Hot Wheel size. It could be full car size.
Yeah, so to recap again why we're showing this silly little project, it is a silly little project, and part of the demonstration of it is someone could build this in WebXR, but the fact that it's built in the operating system and you have access to all this stuff means that Apple has done a lot to surface a lot of core interaction tools to every developer using volumes. And so like there's a model that Apple's trying to stack up here where you could have a whole bunch of these volumes all around you, and then you go into those volumes one at a time and explore from there. Really interesting idea. Not a serious project, but the ideas in this project are really interesting to think about for years to come. Doesn't help Chris out any in developing a VR game or getting an audience in the near future, but nonetheless, right? And our audience is like so sad, so tiny. A moody little graveyard. So what I did is I made in my graveyard that I used, I put Oculus Rooms in there. I put Facebook Spaces, and I'm tempted to put other VR projects that have died
Oculus
over the years.
Rift.
Yeah. Yeah, just put the dates that they were born and died on there, put them in the graveyard,
Oculus Go.
and then I've got my little record right there, right? I don't have to go Google search for those dates anymore. I've got my little my little graveyard of VR death there of all the sad ideas that everyone tried, and yeah, here we are.
Yeah, Daydream.
Yep, I like it.
PSVR 2.
Oh no!
I kid.
Oh God, no. All right, so let me change the image out here. Go back to chat. Windows MR, the list there, they're all starting to list them out in the comments. We've got Magic Leap 1, Magic Leap 2. Yeah, you're all getting it right now. And now you've got a use for the VR graveyard. And now you realize that the the project graveyard, that was a silly idea to just minutes ago. Like a dev looks at that and goes, how is this any different than MetaQuest, right? Like if you weren't really skilled, you could look. If you're coming at this as a new dev, right? You haven't paid attention to VR,
Yeah.
and it's just Apple has a $3,500 headset that doesn't sell to anyone, and Meta has a $500 headset that is getting sold to children who don't have any money.
Yeah.
And where am I going to get an audience from that?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
It doesn't help that I'm one of the ones that think that the Meta's store curation policies were a good thing.
And then they flipped, right? Like they were a good thing, and everyone started placing bets that they were going to just build from there.
Yeah,
but they did a complete flip, and that was worse than like a gradual of like we're actually going in a different way. Or
it's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
All right, let's look at the comments here and see if there's anyone else here that has something happy. Everyone's naming all the brands that had died. Let's see here. The Oculus brand. Yeah, my dream. I've had this conversation, right? Did you ever have an OS VR headset? The open source VR system. Did you ever even consider that system? Razer did it for a little while.
I've had so many VR headsets sent to me. I'm sure that's been one of them.
I talked about it yesterday on the show. A headset that lets me get to a cool virtual world, but doesn't require me to log into an account.
Right.
And I can walk around in it. I've got my hands in it. I want that without an account. And no one wants to make it. Yeah, no one wants to make it. It's how do I make money from that is their question, right?
Yeah,
and that's a valid question. Yeah, you don't.
Standalone wins, and it will be the winner for the foreseeable future. I'm a firm believer in that.
Standalone wins, and the only player in town is holding.
Unfortunately,
yeah.
It's what keeps me up at night, right? when you have a monopoly, it's a dangerous thing in any industry, and games especially, because I don't have to say give the reasons why, right? We all know.
Yep. All right. Well, we're going to make sure that the wish list link for Super RC is in our is in our description here for people to go and find the game. And the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to invite you on next week to continue this conversation. We did a little bit over an hour here. I think we could do an hour again next week as we just walk through step by step the game. We flow in and out of the news a little bit. I think people are starting to file in now. Our numbers are going up at the hour mark here. So maybe we just sit here and keep talking about Star Trek.
I could talk about Star Trek for hours and hours and hours and hours.
Which we already covered our favorite captains offline, but mine, we've got a very similar story there. When I'm a fan of Picard.
Yeah.
Kirk, I've always loved that Kirk had a clever plan behind, he's always one step ahead of his team is always one step ahead of everyone else, right? Like I can't that's more than Kirk, right? Like so Kirk would be my favorite for that. But like Picard and his science and his heart, right? His exploration, thinking these issues through. All right, who is your favorite captain?
um, it's a toss up. It's between. I grew up. Uh, my sort of formulative TV watching years was spent, towards like the beginning of the Next Generation era. So I really became a hardcore. Well, it's so hard to say. I watched all the movies, all the Kirk movies. I loved those. I never got into the original series. It was just a little bit too campy for me when I was a kid. It's just a little too, yeah, campy. And so I watched some of them obviously, but I love the movies. I loved even the first Star Trek movie, which is not considered the greatest. I even loved, the Spock's brother movie, right? The fifth one.
Yeah, the love. You can feel the love of the actors for the characters and
oh my gosh, I loved DeForest Kelly and Montgomery Scott and or not that's the actual Scotty's name, but I forget his name, but all of them, Uhura,
I met
big
Uhura.
fans.
I met
Did you?
Uhura. I met Uhura at the. So I met Uhura at they were bringing one of the shuttles to LA. I think it was Endeavor, the space shuttle Endeavor for its like final retirement ceremony, and they got Uhura out there for that ceremony. And I'm like, I'm being a reporter, but I got to go up and ask Uhura a question or talk to her, and I actually got starstruck, right? Like I don't normally get starstruck.
Yeah,
I'll go up to John Carmack and ask him whatever question I want, right? At
yeah.
one of these events, and I don't give a crap. But then Uhura, oh no, I'm a little nervous asking, I'm just a big fan of her, right? Like I couldn't hold it together. Um, I've heard that yeah, it's
So yeah, I mean,
amazing.
to answer your question, really, it's a toss up. It's really between movie Kirk, and Picard. And I met Patrick, so he's a super nice guy and super professional, and so maybe I'm partially privy to that, and a little bit of bias towards him, but uh, yeah, I mean, I love them all really for very different ways, very
Well,
different reasons.
so Don was talking about next week, and we're trying to think through everything here. All right, so Don, this broadcast, and Don and our audience, this broadcast is coming from a cloud PC. I am I am in a headset in New York. You're in a headset where?
I'm in Orlando, Florida.
And he took it on travel with him. He took
I
his
did.
headset. That's the kind of people he is, um, that we are. And the to get this to run, like I've tried to I've got my PC, my 2080 over there, but like I have to have two physical monitors hooked up to it, and it's just not in the place for me to have two physical monitors hooked up to it right now. I'm not doing it. It's in a place to be a little headless machine that serves PCVR in every room of the house. That is not the system to do this. So the PC, the instance of this world that everyone is watching is running in the cloud on a box I've never seen, and that's sending our visages over to that audience out there, and it's broken my brain for like how this works and how like I'm using a Mac. I've got an external monitor connected to the Mac, but on this Mac is pasted a cloud PC which is running this broadcast for us, right? So like I'm looking at a PC in reality that isn't actually floating right there in front of me. It's floating out there virtualized. And now we want to talk about how do we go back to what we were doing about 6 months ago with Don. And we had the most amazing. Can you imagine being in this setup, right? And in multitasking, you're watching video of Don inside Super RC,
Hmm.
right? So you're watching a big flat screen of Dawn in the game live. I'm watching a big flat screen of Dawn in the game live. And then our audience, we green screen this out, and our audience is watching Dawn on the green screen live. And so you and I are having this great conversation. And just in the background, Don is messing around in your world, right? He's
Yeah.
just exploring, messing up. And sometimes we talk about him, sometimes we don't. Sometimes you help him, sometimes you don't. But suddenly you've got two virtual worlds that are synced together. And even though we're in a virtual world, we're peeking into another virtual world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And while we're peeking into the other virtual world, we're interacting with the person in that other virtual world. Our audience knows, I know, that that type of media doesn't exist. Like, it hasn't been made yet. And the reason it hasn't been made yet is because it's incredibly difficult to pull off streaming wise, to get Don online, to get you online, to get me online, to get all of our PCs streaming together, to have our multitaskings work all together. But all that's to say is my dream would be that, right? Having this setup, right? I don't know if we can get there. I think we have to just come back here next week and be just you and me, do an audience with this. Maybe get a couple assets next time that we could throw up on the video to
Yeah.
show
Yeah.
some
I mean,
clips of the game.
is there a way to run the trailer on here?
Yes and no. So the thing is, we should be able to throw it up on the TV. We can't right now.
Gotcha.
Then we go to OBS. Like, if we step out of VR and use OBS to do it, I need to have the video ready on my cloud PC. So I have to yeet it to a server somewhere and then have it ready to throw up onto that machine. And then it plays for them, not for us.
I see.
So then we lose, then we become broadcasters instead of experiencing something together with our audience through
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I like Not Suspicious. Yeah, they loved our devcast with real-time gameplay. This is our devcast, right? I think our devcast and game casts are now one under this VR Sideload banner. And we need to get another dev. After we have you on next week, if you have other devs you want to introduce to this conversation, uh, I would love to make a fan out of you, right? Have you be in our comments even when you're not out
Yeah.
there, and continue this conversation, because loneliness is a real thing in VR. And we, like, even in our conversations, it's like, man, it just feels good to talk to another human about VR for a while, right?
It does. Yeah.
So let's remember that that's actually so absent in our market, and that's the vibe I'm trying to bring back with this show. So,
By the way, in VR land, I don't look anything like this.
well, and he's gray, right? So he's textured, and he doesn't look anything like that.
Yeah.
He's so we. What I love about that also, though, is if we really needed to, I've heard that George Takei is in my neighborhood of New York.
Oh, cool. That's
and my
cool.
dream would be to have a special guest like him come into the studio and be the gray avatar and not tell anyone, just be like, all right, tell us who you are and where you are right now. And the person could make up a name if they really wanted to, right? They could, it's basically Masked Singer, but yeah, I'm ready, right? We can do that in your proof of concept. So thanks for that.
It would be like, as soon as he would speak, it'd be, he's got such a distinct voice, you'd give it away, right?
I know, right? I'd make him wait a while to do the catchphrases, but yeah, you would totally know the moment you heard his voice.
I love George so much. I love George so much.
Thank you for coming today. We will talk more Star Trek next week. So you will come back with us next week?
Absolutely. I'll be here as many times as you want me to be.
All right. So go wishlist. So go wishlist Super RC. And I haven't given you my hands-on impressions of it, other than I looked at what you did. I see the intent. I'm hopeful that you get the audience you get, that you need to grow. At the heart of what I see you're building, I see you trying to build a place like Walkabout Mini Golf is for mini golf fans, for RC players.
That's right.
For fans of the RC hobby. That's a big ambition. You need a lot of sales to keep going. I wish you luck on that journey with no guarantees from either of us that you're going to get there. But your audience can change, the course of this story by becoming a supporter. Go wishlist the game, talk to other people about the game.
Spread the word.
At some point, are you going to look for testers? Are you looking for testers? Is that going to be a flow here?
It is. We're definitely going to have some closed beta stuff coming up. Yeah.
So there might be opportunity for our fans to ask to get into that group. Maybe, I don't know.
Absolutely.
All right. Cool.
Join our Discord.
Yeah. So there's a Discord.
Discord.gg/BPG. Real easy to remember.
Did you memorize that? Like, did you get to request that URL?
I had to pay for it.
Oh, geez. Oh, man. All right. Well, that explains it, right? All right. So, what was
Nothing
the URL
in life
again?
is free.
What was the Discord URL again?
It's discord.gg/BPG.
All right. So support devs, support artists, support humans doing real work, trying their best, trying to reach others. This is going to be a theme, I think, on our show, that it is difficult for humans to reach humans these days. You can help. You have to do your part. So go check out the wish list. We'll continue this conversation with Chris next week. We'll talk about Star Trek, I think, a little bit. Yep. Thank you to the Cloud for holding up for this.
It's been amazing.
Thank you, Cloud, and we'll see you next week.
Okay.
We can do your Spock finger. Oh, you can't do your Spock fingers because you're controllers. Dang it!
Know.
Darn it, platforms. Wait, you have to look at them. It resolves if you stare at them.
I mean, I can do it. See, live long and prosper.
But flip them around and then stare at them like straight.
Yeah.
What build are you on?
Of what?
Of the Quest.
The latest one.
Huh. Hmm. Why are mine spread out so much more than yours?
I don't know. That's a good question.
All right. Well, we'll see you in the future.
Yeah.